up, y'all? Long time no see. Welcome back to the channel. Pizzo Plays here, and today we are going to be recapping the journey to the beginning of Ragnarok. God of War is a series that I can just honestly talk all day about, but today I wanted to focus primarily on God of War 2018 as we get ready for God of War Ragnarok to come out later this year. This is a bit of a longer video, so I do have chapters set up in the description. If you want to just jump to any section of the video, feel free. This video is going to serve as an introduction for some, but a review for most, since this game came out about 4 years ago and was voted the IGN best video game of all time. I have plenty of other video game reviews coming as well, so if you have not already, go ahead and hit the subscribe and the notification bell so that you know when the next video goes live. There's definitely more content coming throughout the year, including live playthroughs on stream, more reviews, and some community events on the horizon, so don't forget to hit that like button as well. Let's try to get this video to 20 likes, and without further ado, let's go ahead and get started on this journey. God of War 2018 picks up after the death of Kratos' lover, Faye. At the beginning of the game, not much is known about her, but she has huge implications for God of War Ragnarok. Faye told Kratos that she wants he and their son, Atreus, to spread her ashes from the highest peak in the realm. After using the Mark tree to burn her body, Kratos follows Atreus' lead on a hunting mission to see if he can prove that he's really about it. The presentation of unforeseen conflict like Draugr and other mythological beings exposes the truth in Kratos and Atreus' current relationship. A father, tormented to this day by his past actions and reluctant to get close to his son out of fear he will doom his son to his own sins, versus a son who doesn't understand his father's reluctance but is eager to prove he's capable of handling challenges his own way. We also pick up that Atreus has some sort of sickness that seems to come out when he gets mad, which sounds a lot like what Kratos had been cursed with from the original God of War games. After a successful-ish hunt, Atreus and Kratos make their way back home to gather Faye's ashes, but Kratos gets a knock on his door from the game's main villain, Baldur, the first of the Acer gods to show themselves, who has a drunken demeanor, no sense of feeling, and a Mortal Kombat uppercut.
My turn.
Nah, he ain't playing with you, and trust me, this beef shows itself to be the definition of on sight. With the cabin now mysteriously compromised and wanting to make sure his boy is okay, Atreus is forced to be ready for the journey ahead. Along the way, you meet Brock, one half of the Dwarven brothers, both of which are charming in their own way, but a headache to deal with, and are responsible for the creation of Mjolnir. Part of the journey sees Atreus hunt a mysterious boar that you find out was under the protection of Freya, of a near goddess cast out by the cruel All-Father himself, Odin. She also happens to be Baldur's mom's, but Kratos and Atreus don't find that out till way later. Upon meeting, she quickly notices that Kratos is a god from another land, making Atreus at least part god, and offers her motherly advice from her experiences with her own godly child.
The gods of these realms don't take kindly to outsiders, trust me. I know. When they find you, and they will, they'll make things difficult. The boy will want answers.
That will be my problem.
Whatever you're hiding, you cannot protect him forever. But you're right, doesn't concern me.
This basically sums up the relationship until the end of the game. Afterwards, you meet Jormungandr, enemy of Thor and son of Loki and Angrboda, who apparently got socked so hard by Thor it sent him back in time before his birth. He resides in the Lake of Line, and him rising out of the water lowers the level of it, revealing more of the surrounding area as well as Tyr's temple that houses the Yggdrasil, or the World Tree. This is a place you'll use to travel between available realms, and a vantage point that seemingly reveals the destination of the highest point in the realms. On the way there, you bump into Sindri, one half of the Dwarven brothers, who's extremely germophobic but is known for his craftsmanship and his mutual disdain for his brother Brock. You move a bit further only to find out from Freya that there's a black fog called the Black Breath that can only be cleared by the pure light of Alfheim. After a bit of Ragnarok foreshadowing by Freya, she gives Kratos the travel rune to get to Alfheim, and once you get there, we find out Freya has also been cursed to stay trapped in Midgard. While there, one of Atreus' abilities seems to manifest itself and he can't really handle it.
Voices! You don't hear that?
I hear nothing.
It's going away now. It was screaming. Lots of voices. Angry. You really didn't hear that?
No.
It felt evil.
Now, Alfheim is amidst a war between the light and dark elves that span millennia. Kratos vows to stay neutral during this visit, which really means that anybody who gets in the way of them reaching the light of Alfheim can get it. But inadvertently, their journey leads to them freeing the captive light elves, Kratos' journey into the light, Atreus earning stripes by massacring what looks like hundreds of dark elves, and killing the leader of the dark elves, who tells us
that we made a brave mistake.
Whatever that means remains to be seen in Ragnarok. After you take the light of Alfheim back to Midgard and clear the Black Breath, you have to fix an elevator shaft and endure waves of Draugr, Golem, and dragons as you make your way closer to the peak. Before reaching the peak, Kratos inadvertently sets up what would have been a plot hole near the end of the game by using the mistletoe arrowhead to repair his gear. More on that later. But as you get closer to the peak, you overhear Baldur, this time accompanied by his nephews and sons of Thor, Magni and Modi, asking someone about a tattooed man traveling with a child. Once they leave, you find out that mysterious voice is actually Mimir, the Norse god of knowledge.
The son of Odin hunt us.
Okay, there are a few gaps in my knowledge.
And while up there, he reveals the true highest point in all the realms in Jotunheim. Apparently, he's been imprisoned and tortured by Odin for 109 winters and offers his counsel in exchange for cutting his head off and being reanimated by the witch in the woods. After freaking out about Atreus' mistletoe arrows, Freya reanimates the head and does her best Tomb Raider impression.
Mimir, you there?
Yes.
Good.
Oh.
Now, Mimir is quite literally the guide to the history of the Norse events to date. Aside from being bewitched by Freya to never speak of Baldur's weaknesses or why the Aesir are after Kratos and Atreus, including the fact that Freya is a veneer goddess, which Kratos doesn't take too well given his general hatred for gods.
You are God.
Leader of the Vanir, once yes, but no longer.
You did not think it important to tell me.
Are you really going to lecture me about that?
We are leaving, boy.
But
Now.
You're welcome.
Mimir has a conversation with the World Serpent, who then agrees to help Kratos and Atreus set off in the right direction, and Mimir says the new mission now is to get a hold of a magic chisel and learn the travel rune to Jotunheim to travel there. Where can you find this magic chisel, you ask? In the corpse of a dead giant stonemason, Thamur, who was killed battling Thor. Speaking of Thor, you bump into Magni and Modi, who have now found the tattooed man traveling with a child. Of course, a fight ensues, and it ends in a split decision, and Atreus' sickness shows itself again, yet Kratos still refuses to tackle the truth. But they press on and use the chisel to enter Tyr's temple, and they have a brief father-son moment before it gets cut short by Modi wanting a round 2, which only makes things worse for Atreus because he almost goes full Cell Games Gohan.
Whoops. I think I broke him.
I did say almost, right? Anyways, the last thing you want to do though is mess with the son of the ghost of Sparta. Now desperate for a way to save his son, Kratos runs back to Freya's to see if there's anything she can do to help.
I'm still a god. Go away.
Just petty. Freya's world seems to stop once she realizes that Atreus is actually in danger and lets Kratos know that she can still save him, but it's going to require the heart of a keeper of hell, the Norse realm of the dead, for her to be able to save him. And in order to get that heart, he has to have a weapon that's actually effective in hell. Now the axe he has was made by the dwarf brothers, but the only thing that can counteract the effects of being in hell, Ares' greatest creations, the Blades of Chaos. So in this moment, Kratos is forced to confront his past and use the weapon he swore he'd never use again.
Pretend to be everything you are not. Teacher, husband, father. But there is one unavoidable truth you will never escape. You cannot change. You will always be a monster.
I know, but I am your monster no longer.
Once they're in his possession, he literally goes to hell and back to retrieve the heart, and Freya is able to restore him to good health. Upon leaving, Atreus lets Kratos know he heard him tell Freya that he's cursed. So finally, Kratos is forced to speak the truth, or at least some version of it.
I'm a god, boy. From another land far from here. When I came to these shores, I chose to live as a man. But the truth is, I was born a god. And so were you.
Naturally, Atreus has so many questions, but only time will tell what he's actually capable of. Once they continue where they left off for the rune to travel to Jotunheim, Atreus starts to disconnect himself from his humanity. They go through a series of puzzles that teach them about Ragnarok and how important Tyr was across pantheons, and ultimately ends with the rune that they find, activating something in Atreus that we may not see come to fruition until Ragnarok. They have another father-son moment, and Kratos still keeps the whole truth from Atreus, which doesn't help his attitude at all. In fact, he's so bold as to kill Modi after being weakened by Thor. Kratos tries to get through to Atreus, but at this point, he's so far gone.
Watch your tone, boy.
Eventually, though, they end up back at the peak where they found Mimir and create a travel way to Jotunheim. But remember what I said about on site?
Father, look out!
I told you, man, he not playing, but Kratos ain't no punk. He ain't gonna back down for nothing. He ride by his son, he die by his son, so he gonna see about him. And we know what happens when you mess with Kratos' son.
Stay away from my son!
So of course they get to locking, and I mean getting down.
Boy.
And even after the theatrics, Kratos still let Atreus know he's not above getting a whooping.
This discussion is far from over.
They make their way out of hell, passing by illusions cast by the realm for Atreus, Baldur, and finally Kratos. Once they escape, they find the missing panel from Tyr's temple, and Mimir realizes that both he and Tyr had jeweled eyes given to them by the giants before their massacre, only to the people that they trust to have a secret path to Jotunheim. The dwarves put their differences aside to make a key to the temple underneath the world tree. Kratos has to flip the temple, yes, flip the temple, and they find the Unity Stone, an item used by Tyr to help him travel between realms and pantheons. They find the missing Jotunheim tower and place it back where it belonged, and now the only missing piece of the puzzle is Mimir's other eye in order for them to travel there. This just so happens to be in the Thor statue that the world serpent ate, and so they venture inside and retrieve the eye, and shortly after they're spat out in front of the Moor's corpse. They have a short conversation with Freya and find out that it was Baldur that had them spat out. Kratos tries to offer some insight, seeing himself in Baldur, but of course Baldur ain't trying to hear none of that, and thus the final round. This fight is a little bit different though. Atreus stands his ground, and consequently, turns out Kratos did himself a favor by using that mistletoe arrow to fix Atreus' gear earlier, and now Baldur's more vulnerable than ever. In a fit of rage, Freya reanimates the Moor's corpse and uses him to try to end the battle, but only turns it into a four-way Hell in a Cell. Just as it seems to be over though, Kratos takes it upon himself to end Baldur's path of vengeance. This doesn't go over well with Freya, of course, and she vows to violate.
I will rain down every agony, every violation imaginable upon you. I will parade your cold body from every corner of every realm and feed your soul to the vilest filth in hell. That is my promise.
He saved your life.
He robbed me of everything.
After the fight, they finally make it to the peak in Jotunheim, and Kratos releases himself from his past. They also release Faye's ashes across the realm, and Atreus and Kratos have a conversation that results in one of the best reveals in video game history, in my opinion.
Parents called me Loki.
Once everything is said and done, they head back to the crib, get some sleep, and Loki has a vision of the future. Wait for Ragnarok, the end of all days. This reboot of the franchise completely redefines Kratos as a character by giving him a shot at redemption through his son. In the original series, Kratos pledged his life to Ares to survive, but while he was given immense power, his pledge to Ares led to a betrayal of trust, as Ares had him inadvertently kill his wife and daughter at the same time. The visions of all he's done while serving Ares haunts him to this day, and is the reason why he's so reluctant to get close to Atreus and let him in on the lies the Greek Pantheon told him that led to his distrust of gods in general. All he's ever known is war, and he doesn't want that to rub off on Atreus. That's why you see him hold back sometimes, because he knows the possible consequences if he teaches Atreus everything he knows.
What are you doing? Now his guard is up. Only fire. Only fire when I tell you to fire.
I'm sorry.
Do not be sorry. Be better.
He even hid the blades of chaos under the house because even though his pledge to Ares resulted in him being stuck with these blades, he doesn't want to be associated with them. We even see in Tyr's vault that the word of the ghost of Sparta spread past Greece. The theme of patricide is something that has followed Kratos since his conception. Zeus imprisoned his father Kronos, and Kratos killed his father Zeus. Having realized this himself, he makes it a point to have meaningful conversations and connect with Atreus, which is something that he never had growing up. And it sucks because it took so long, but hopefully he got through to him. I think it was a good idea to show Kratos as vulnerable in different moments because you want players to feel like you're not mindlessly slashing through people and things for the sake of vengeance, because at the end of the day, Kratos is a broken man trying to escape his past and become a better version of himself, free from his past transgressions. Loki's character arc throughout the game is very important and most definitely will have consequences once Ragnarok comes. I think it was important to have him grow up with the idea that he's only mortal to establish his connection to humanity. The guys in these games are so power drunk that in most cases they only see purpose in serving themselves rather than the people that they consider beneath them. He has some emotional moments trying to cope with the fact that in order to prove himself, the situation is now kill or be killed. And even in regards to combat, Atreus is only able to do so much at first as a reflection of his innocence as a character that eventually fades as the story progresses. He also develops his own dynamic with side characters around him, which establishes him as his own character rather than a Kratos mini, which makes for some great world building for Ragnarok.
Where's the little turd?
As the game progresses and you upgrade his abilities, he gets more confident and you'd be shocked at the way he helps out. This isn't your average NPC that runs around with stormtrooper aim. He's actually useful. His sickness also makes his character sympathetic to an extent. He's inherited something he never asked for and is also gearing up to lead an event that was not of his making, which in some ways makes him more like Kratos than Kratos cares to admit. That, along with the change in his demeanor after he learns about his godhood, also reiterates how easily he could have been a mirror reflection of everything Kratos despised in the gods had he not been involved. This also immersed me in the game more because the way he was acting for a while really made me want to snatch dude up.
Watch your tone, boy.
Whatever.
All in all though, Loki's well done here with a twist in his own relationships established that I'm dying to see played out in Ragnarok. Mimir is the comic relief and tour guide of the game. Although he doesn't do much to change the gameplay experience outside of shouting out enemies approaching from blind spots, he's a very welcome addition. He's also the doorway to the Norse mythology. Having played a pivotal role in its history, he knows a lot and his stories are always informative and entertaining.
Had I known the witch in the woods was Freya herself, I never would have suggested this.
Freya? The goddess Freya?
Speaking of Freya, although she's not the main villain of the game, she was a great choice as a supporting character. With Faye dead, she served as a surrogate mother for Loki and a neutral frenemy up until the end of the game for Kratos. She's sympathetic in the way that her story is tragic, and for any other person without a homicidal deranged son would normally align herself with Kratos and Loki as an ally. She also has a storied history amongst the realms that was discussed but never seen, and hopefully we get to see that in Ragnarok. Her abilities are very interesting, and the fact that she's not only led the Vanir gods and the Valkyries at one point, it's very understood that Freya's not one to mess with. Her involvement in some of Mimir's stories also sheds some light on the type of goddess she is, which is mostly good. I say mostly because now she clearly wants her lick back for Kratos killing her son. Her story arc should only get more interesting in Ragnarok because of the difference in dynamic that she has with Kratos and Loki. I could see her focusing solely on killing Kratos rather than both because Loki never actually did anything to warrant her killing him. Even in the end, Loki didn't purposefully expose Baldur's weakness. Baldur ran up on Loki and pierced his own skin by punching him in the chest, and even upon Baldur's clear defeat, he actually encouraged Kratos not to kill Baldur, but only time will tell in Ragnarok. Speaking of Baldur, Baldur as a villain is only somewhat captivating, but he serves a very unique and necessary beginning point for the Norse duology in the series. The way he popped up unannounced as a seemingly drunk mortal originally was a great way to start the game, but after that he's more of an action set piece than a nuance. In Norse mythology though, his death marks the beginning of Fimbulwinter, which is a winter that lasts 3 years and signals the beginning of Ragnarok. His power set is really cool and makes for cool battle sequences each time you bump heads with him. I just wish they did more with his character, maybe put his motivations a little more in black and white rather than leaving it ambiguous for a majority of the game until you end up in hell. His story is somewhat sympathetic though, having all feeling taken from him by his mother at birth as a means of what she saw as protection. Seeing more of his backstory outside of the flashbacks in Helheim would have been nice to flesh out the character a little bit more and maybe make him a slightly more engaging villain. I played this game on the PS5, and man, the graphics went crazy, especially when you switch to quality mode. Massive things like the Moor's corpse and the World Serpent were amazing to look at, especially in action. They also did a good job of rethinking the combat system. Sure, it has similarities with other open world games, but for me it was refreshing to step away from the classic hack and slash from previous games. You now have to select specific moves for how you want to fight depending on the weapon you use. In order to unlock specific moves, you have to upgrade your weapon skills in different categories as well. You also collect gear that provides boosts to your stats to make you more powerful and Loki more useful as well. I do get that some people miss the classic combat though, and for good reason. What this game is missing is more epic moments. I mean, this game is definitely full of action-packed set pieces and fights, but in the original series, the quick time events made the combat more amazing than it actually was. And with the next game, I'd like to see them go back to that a little bit more, as well as making Kratos a little bit more mobile. Between puzzles, collectibles, and mini-boss fights, this game gives you something to do for a long time. Things like gauntlets in Muspelheim and mist collecting in Niflheim for rare gear from Sindri will definitely keep you preoccupied between ripping your hair out trying to take out all the Valkyries. And the story's not just linear, they have side missions as well that help improve your stats, as well as more world building around the area and different characters. All in all, this game is extremely well done. The graphics and the massive amount of tasks to keep you busy make up for the refresh, but somewhat of a downgrade in combat and lackluster villain character development. I'm going to give this game a 9 out of 10. If you haven't played this game yet, I highly suggest that you do. Not only is it fun, but it's super immersive, and with God of War Ragnarok on the horizon, now is a great time to introduce yourself or even refresh your memory on the content and storyline. Now that we're past that journey, I want to know your thoughts. If you've played the Greek saga of God of War games, how do you feel about the direction that they took with the story structure and combat? If you enjoyed this game, what aspect are you most excited to see come to fruition in Ragnarok? And if you didn't like the game, what would Santa Monica have to do to convince you that both this game and Ragnarok will be worth buying? Let me know down in the comments below. I appreciate everybody that came through and watched this video to this point. And if you're still here, like always, go ahead and join that Discord in the description. That is the main place to go if you want to be a part of the community. And one last time, if you have not already, please don't forget to like, subscribe, and leave a comment on the video. We're going to go ahead and end this one with a preview for the next live playthrough that we got going. And with that being said, I appreciate the support, and I hope you guys have a wonderful day. Catch y'all later.